Hi, guys. Welcome. We have an amazing topic ready for you guys today. I had it on the screen. That's not it. I had it on the screen. Hold on. Let me fix that. I forgot to save it. Here we go. Let me bring Ocean onto the screen. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. I can't complain at all. It's good to be here.
It is. It is. It's been a very interesting type of energy this morning. How's that been affecting you?
Oh, it has been interesting, but in a good way to me. I just feel this beautiful shift in momentum, this beautiful shift in everything. And I feel that it is the shift to change everything, to kind of get everything where it needs to be, like a forceful alignment, but in a beautiful way.
Yes, I feel that too. Like it kind of involves a little bit of that fear of the unknown.
Yes,
Um but at the same time, it's a really good feeling, like this hopefulness. Do you
absolutely.
feel that?
Yes, I do. I do. And Emmy, can I just take a minute to thank this beautiful community, you and this beautiful community, all of you. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm a very private person. And if it were anybody else other than Emmy, I would have been upset. But, I was just so deeply touched. And I just want to thank you all for just being who you are, those who were just beautiful in every way. All right. It doesn't matter if you couldn't do anything. It's not even something that I would have even expected. I just want to say thank you very much for being you.
Oh, that's so sweet. Um, it's it's this really important thing for people like you and I to experience, where we're such givers, selfless givers at that. We don't expect the acknowledgement. It's
Hmm.
hard to see acknowledgement, but sometimes I think what people like you and I go through, it teaches us to build walls to protect ourselves because we've been so disappointed, right? And
Hmm.
because we've been disappointed, we don't want others to be disappointed. And that's part of why we give. And we end up blocking our ability to receive.
Mm.
So we go through the same lessons, you and I.
Yes, we do. Absolutely do.
Yeah. And I guess it was just time for you to feel how important you are in this community.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so precious. Thank you so much. It's
You're
beautiful.
so welcome. So today, you and I, we had been talking about this particular topic,
Hmm.
awake versus aware.
Yes,
And oh my gosh, there's a lot to unpack with this.
yes.
There's a lot to unpack. What is your first thought when it comes to this particular subject?
My first thought is that we often hear woke, or I'm awake.
Mhm.
But how often do we hear, I am aware? How often do we say this to ourselves? How often do we hear this in popular culture? I don't think we hear that so much, but we do hear, I'm awake, I'm woke, I'm awakened.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the two are necessarily synonymous. As a
Mhm.
matter of fact, I think that they can be something that's not even in the same category. So I would like to know, what do you feel about that? What is the difference between being awake and being aware?
So and I am so much more gruff in my communication with this type of subject. It's a world of difference. between the two. If we're
Mhm.
looking at the way it plays out in a lot of these spiritual communities, social media especially, there's so much ego involved, and that's what really makes a difference between the two of those words,
I agree.
two labels. So
Mhm.
for me, someone who woke, um, you know, like someone who is woke has more to do with uh, wanting to be seen and recognized as more valid,
Mhm.
more valuable, someone
Mhm.
who's more knowledgeable, someone who's more. So it ties into this compete, compare um,
Mm.
scenario. I know you and I had talked about the different topics we could talk about today, and we went back and forth with a whole compete compare, and then we also went back and forth with the woke and those who are aware. And it's like, this subject is such a thorn in my side, because
Mm.
people could simply let go of that ego that they use to compete and compare. The whole woke thing would absolutely disintegrate.
Mm.
People who are really making progress in their self development, their self awareness,
Mhm.
they're not woke. They are aware, they are observing. We
Oh.
are an awakened species.
Mm.
By
Mm.
nature, we are already awakened. We're hybridized with a very advanced genetic line,
Mhm.
several of them.
Mhm.
And the thing is, this concept of we're not enlightened and this and that, we're not this, we're not that, but no one knows what we are.
Mhm.
That's not what I've been being told by my soul, by my guides and guardians, and all of that.
Mm.
I've always been told that we are an enlightened species in varying stages of forgetfulness. And
Mm. Wow. Wow. And you said something that I want to kind of ask about too, about the state of observation, of observing. How many do you think, how often do you think people consider themselves to be awake or even aware, but not really observing themselves?
that's a major difference between the two groups, the awake group and the aware group. The
Mm-hmm.
aware group does a lot of auto psychotherapy, does
Mm-hmm.
a lot of self introspection. The awake group, the woke people, they're consistently projecting.
Mm.
Right? So
Mm.
that's the major difference. Are you projecting your insecurities? Are you projecting your toxicity onto other people? Are
Mm.
you doing this in a way where you have to belittle someone else's beliefs, them as a person? Like, how do you deal with your internal issues? We all
Oh,
have issues,
yes, we
right?
do. Yes, we all do.
Like, for example, how do you personally handle your internal struggles?
That's a very good question. Like I was saying at the beginning, I'm very private. A lot of things I do, a lot of it is internal. Um, I start with looking at myself. I start with looking at everything, but looking at myself. I start with thinking to myself, okay, what is going on? How did I co create what is going on? What can I do about what is going on? And I kind of do that in my own privacy for the most part. I write, I process, but I'm still observing myself. And I think that people like us sometimes can be so hard on ourselves, but I'm learning to be more of a witness than, what can I say, a judge, if that makes sense, of myself.
Right. Right. I saw a comment right here. Universal D, he says, "You've always been awoke. You're coming to the awareness of your enlightenment."
Deep, deep.
Yeah. We've
Yeah.
always been who we are, you know?
Yes, yes.
And I think the whole process of ascension is really nothing more than us becoming aware of who we've always been. It's this thing that I keep seeing where um life as we've lived it with our families and our friends and whatnot, it has caused us to begin acting slightly not in alignment with who we actually are,
Do you think
especially when we
slightly
have
is an
these kids.
understatement? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but do you think slightly is an understatement?
Well, and it builds, it
Mhm.
builds and builds and builds until it's no longer slightly,
Oh,
until
yeah.
you create an entire character. So maybe
Mhm.
I thank you for that. I should have clarified. This starts off in childhood.
Mhm.
You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
like if you can't say what you want to say,
Mhm.
um, sometimes even like the parenting, and it doesn't necessarily have to be hurtful, harmful, malignant parenting.
Yes.
It could be even like the societal conditioning that encourages or forces parents to teach specific types of manners, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Good
Yes.
manners is good, but
Mhm.
it often comes at the suppression of the child being able to express themselves.
It does. It does. And sometimes I think that we as parents, we pass that on. You know, we may be thinking that we're trying to get our children to be mannerable, polite, not a bother because we felt like that for some way coming up, and we don't want to feel like a bother. We don't want our children to feel like they're a bother, and we don't want to feel like our children are a bother. But like you said, it causes us to suppress ourselves. It teaches us to teach our children to suppress themselves too, and it takes a lot of undoing. Some of it we may not be able to even undo before they reach adulthood, and so they have their own internal process.
Yeah. I think a lot of my personal journey between the awake and aware, because I went through both.
Yes.
That's important for people to note.
Hmm.
I went through a period where my goal was to be woke.
Hmm.
I mean, granted, it was before the term woke came around, thank God.
Right.
But I went through that where I felt like if I had the proper lifestyle, the proper diet, if I use the proper terms, only wore the proper fabrics down to the fabrics.
Not into the fabrics.
Girl,
Tell me
down
about
to
it, girl.
the fabrics. Makeup frequency, okay? We can't. Yeah, no, and I did all of that. I had
Mm.
never been as unhealthy as I was in that period.
Wow. And I can relate. Instead of saying awake, the term that I used back in the day was conscious.
Ooh,
Right? And conscious of what? I'm glad I was relatively young when I kind of snapped out of that because at some point I started to realize it was like another point of separation. Everybody's conscious of something, everybody's unconscious of something. We're all learning and growing. So it's like, why the unnecessary separation? Conscious of what? Are we conscious of our unconscious ways of separation? What are we conscious of?
right. And I use the word conscious too. I was like, oh dang, she about to call me out. Settle down, heart. Yeah, no, I used to use that term. And
Mm.
having lived in California much of my life, it was this thing of if I spent enough time in Berkeley, because Berkeley has all the conscious people,
Okay.
right? All the vote. Now it's,
Whoa.
you know, and if I dreadlock my hair,
Mhm.
my hair can't hold a dreadlock. I'm gonna tell you that, right? It likes to try to lock itself into one big lock if I
Okay.
don't brush it. But I don't have the hair texture for that. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And it was this
I used to
thing
have
of
long
like,
locks.
you know, I think a lot of us, we fall into this aesthetic to play a role. I've had
Mm.
my hair in singles, micro blades, braids. I've had an interlock, all sorts of different hairstyles. And I thought that I was finding myself.
Mm.
And this is a statement specifically for me. It
Mhm,
doesn't
mhm.
apply to anyone else. I want to make that very clear. I went through this entire journey to find myself, and I wanted to do what people know as dreadlocks. I didn't refer to it as dreadlocks. I referred to it as jata. It has to do with a spiritual practice,
Mhm,
and it's not Rastafarian.
mhm.
It goes all the way into like ancient Hinduism. It ties into Shiva, the Lord Shiva, and all of these different things. And I realized like my mindset was being created by my environment. It
That's
wasn't coming from inside me.
right, right.
Yeah, it
That's
wasn't.
realization. That's powerful. Even did you look at some point how so much of your identity came from right there in your home, like who you were told that you were, what you were told you weren't supposed to be or were supposed to be, what you were told about the world, the way the world works, how our worldview was just shaped by a lot of what we were taught right in our own home. And it's not necessarily to say that, you know, any parent is just bad or good. It's not to say that. Some parents are bad, you know, and some parents are really good. But again, those subconscious patterns being passed down, I think.
Yes. Yes. A a lot of us don't realize not only does our environment cultivate us by forcing us
Hmm.
into submission, into compliance. If you're like me, my environment gave me something to rebel against.
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
wasn't rebellious in the traditional sense. I didn't sneak out. Like
Right.
my entire teen years, I did not sneak out. My parents knew if I'm home, I'm home. There's not some pillow set up
Yeah.
on my
Oh,
bed to look like me, you
yeah.
know? But I rebelled in other ways where it was like, I refuse to take in your mindset. I
Hmm.
refuse to allow you to make me feel
Hmm.
what you say I should feel.
Mm.
You know, that's how my rebelliousness expressed itself.
Mm.
And it ties into the other thing that, we kind of we wanted to talk about, but we were trying to figure out what to narrow it down to. The awake versus aware, it ties so deeply into the neurodivergency.
Yes.
Those who are awake tend to be those who are neurotypical but trying to achieve an aesthetic.
Mm.
Those who are aware have a tendency to be neurodivergent and are just very in tune with themselves, whether they know it or not.
Yes. Ooh, I love that. I wish you could run it back because I want to hear that again. It just flows so perfectly. Yes, I love it. I would like to know how many can relate out there, Amy.
I'm sure there's a lot of people who can relate. Those who are aware, but they're not exactly fully consciously aware, they're not cognitive
Mm-hmm.
of what they're aware of energetically,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally. They have a tendency to struggle so bad with who they are, how to process things. They have a tendency to even cope with substances,
Mm-hmm.
cope with all sorts of different, very unhealthy mechanisms.
I
Very, very
agree.
unhealthy.
Yes, I agree. And you're talking, and I think about it, and I think, especially in the absence of a positive outlet, you
Mhm.
know, I would perform. You know, that was a very good outlet for me. You know, at some point, I just became more comfortable in my skin, but performing because I'm artistic, you know, and I used to be in a band, I used to sing, I used to do poetry, all of that stuff. But the energy was just so beautiful. The live performance, the liveness of it, everything was just beautiful. And it was a great creative, artistic outlet for me. What was your outlet?
I didn't have one.
Mm,
That's what caused me to fracture so much
mm,
and cling to this concept of awake,
wow.
of consciousness, being conscious. And because I was aware of specific things, see, notice how, my earlier statement, I said, tend to be,
Yeah.
the awake group tends to be neurotypical.
Mhm,
Neurodivergence also very much tend to be people who want to conform, they
mhm.
want to fit in,
Yeah.
but they know they're never going to fit into the normal groups of society. They just know that. You
Yes, yes,
know?
yes. Can
And
call
so,
me out. Yes, I have. I've experienced that, definitely. And
yes.
it's so good to be in this place where I'm good with being who I am with all my quirks.
Mm.
This is a journey. Self acceptance, self love. I believe it's a journey. It doesn't have to be just one destination. It's a journey. We learn more about ourselves every day. There are a lot of things, even spiritually, who I am that I'm just starting to share, you know? So I was comfortable with sharing parts of myself, certain parts of myself before, but never spiritually really until I encountered you. And that's completely honest. K33, I would have never really told anyone that I'm clairaudient. I would
Mm.
have never told anyone that I have clairvoyant capacity, anything like that. But it's like encountering you, and just when you encounter your people, your soul fam, your soul tribe. Tell me a little bit about how that ties into all of these things we're talking about. And I want to ask you this too. I know we're not really having the interview type of format. I don't have notes today. We're just having a conversation. But I don't want this to be missed, because there's some people out there who have never heard of neurotypical, neurodivergence. And I had not heard of it until I encountered you too. So can you break that down for us? And also, can you tell us how the other things tie into all these things that we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for my personal journey, even within spiritual communities, I never allowed myself to be myself because I knew they wouldn't get me.
Yeah.
I knew, I could feel it, I could sense it. There
Mhm.
was no resonance,
Mhm.
but I just really felt so alone and I wanted to belong to something.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, when my people arrived, which is all of you,
Mhm.
it really freed me to just exist and flow within my organic flow. I
Sure.
didn't have to turn up the rate of flow. I didn't have to turn it down. I didn't have to do any of that. I just could be me, and it's okay. That I wasn't expected to be perfect in the traditional sense, and I was embraced as the perfection of creation that I actually already am. That was profound. It really was profound. So all of that really led me to this the beginning portions of this journey led me to really dive deep into like what is so different about my brain. So I
Mhm.
have some learning deficits that I overcompensate for,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
It's I'm just a walking conundrum.
Mhm.
You could
Me
call me
too.
that.
Me too. I
So
understand.
I have learning disabilities. I have ADHD. I have dyslexia. I have all sorts of different things that's going on with my brain function. And traditionally, that would be seen as a disability.
Mhm.
It would be seen as some form of malfunctioning of the brain,
Mhm.
right? I
Mhm.
get depressive episodes. I'm just a very intense, very deep type of person.
Mhm.
Most of this I don't allow other people to see.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
What you guys see in live streams, that's the actuality of me. You meet me in person, you're going to get a whole different person. Whole different person. One that is very reserved, very quiet. And I tell you guys this often. No one wants to believe me, but it's the reality of it.
Mhm.
And so I began really looking for information because I wanted to see why my brain was malfunctioning.
Mm.
And I came across so much information regarding the pathology of neurological function, psychology, all of that. And what I came across that changed my life was the term neurodivergent.
Mm.
It's when your brain processes external stimulation in any other way outside of the neurotypical fashion.
Mm.
And as I began to really look into that, and it began to really help me come to terms with my natural state, conversations with Michael really helped to round it all out.
Mm.
I'm not suffering through pathology, some type of disease of parts of me. I am suffering through my life because I'm forcing or trying to force my brain to
Mm.
function in a way it's not meant to.
Oh,
I process in a multidimensional manner.
girl. Oh, speak it.
Yeah. And I never really liked to speak up in school because I always felt like I would get embarrassed if, I give them the answer and I tell them how I got to that answer.
Mhm.
And it's this roundabout way, or I can't explain why I know. And then I'm going to look like a liar or a cheater or, some other thing. I also struggle with imposter syndrome,
Mm.
where you can't just accept that you're greatness. It's like, well, no, what if someone, really gets to know me and finds out that I'm really full of, poop?
Mm.
And it's a lot of different things that go on. But
Wow.
what I realized was I am a quantum learner in a linear world.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Girl, everything you're saying. And you know what? The community we have, I think, is full of neurodivergences, like you said. How many of you all can relate out there? I see somebody said exactly. Somebody said, say that again, exactly. The first to explain what I couldn't. Preach, preacher, truth, all of these things. You see the resonance? That is so beautiful. And I'm just here like, oh my gosh, she's speaking it. She's speaking it. I'm feeling it. With me, it wasn't so much of a thing of wanting to fit in with my peers and of want to be cool since I'm naturally cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm naturally
You are.
cool. But my thing was I had abilities professionally, but I just didn't fit into that world. You
Mm,
know, I can fit in a way that I know what to do, what I need to do. I'm very good with policy, good with public administration, great with service in the public, great with all those things. But I don't fit in a certain way. And especially when it's a culture that I know is corrupt, you
mm,
know, it doesn't fit with me. And trying to be who you are in a setting like that, you're going to come with a certain set of skills, but it's also going to come with a certain level of integrity. And this is not to shout out any one or any particular group in particular. I'm just talking about my story too. And I think that a lot of us can relate because it's like trying to have a bowl of water. You're this bowl of water, right? You come to this. Give me 1 second because my multi-dimensional self is trying to put everything together. It's like a dye, like a drop of red dye. You bring this clear water to the table, but systemically, this just red dye is there. And no matter how much you try to keep the water clear, that red dye is just trickling down, trickling down, trickling down. What's going to happen? Is that water going to remain clear? I am who I am, but what I'm bringing to the table is always going to be tempered with by the external expectations that just don't fit my internal expectations, right? So, what do you do in that sense? Do you continue to try to fit in? Do you try to create opportunities that are more suited to what you are and who you are? What do you think in that sense can and will happen? And don't get me wrong, I'm not encouraging anybody to do anything out there. I'm just talking about my story. You know your life better than I do. I don't know your life, but I just have a question about that. What do you do in a situation like that? Because I think a lot of people are going through that. What would you do?
So, first and foremost, I think a lot of us need to pause and ask ourselves that question.
Mm,
Going in line with what you were talking about, the analogy of the glass of water, right? So, if we look at this glass of water, it's clear.
yeah.
If I were to place a red drop of dye in there, if the water sits still, eventually
Yes.
it will disperse through the water. Now, what society does is puts a lid on you.
Mm,
It closes up tight. You're still that glass of water with one drop of red dye. And then you go through things that shake you up and shake you up and shake you up and shake you up and shake you up. What do you have now? And
yes.
before you realize it, you are a completely different person than who you were intended to be. But here's the thing, you're not just the water that's in this container, because that water is really useless if it just sits in the container. You are this essence that needs to be drinked.
Mm,
You
mm.
have to be taken in. You
Oh,
have to allow yourself to be sipped by the people who cross your path. That water is still water, is still water. And I promise you, if you allow yourself to be handled by the people who were intended to cross your path and handle you, you might come across someone like me that knows how to create its own water filter. And I will put your
oh,
water in there. I will allow it to percolate. I will allow it to filter all of that impurity.
oh,
And I will place you back in a clean vessel
oh, love
as
it.
that clear water.
I love it. It is so beautiful. Oh, I love that. Let me see what they're talking about, Emmy. You see, I have my handy dandy phone here because I'm fixing the screen. Oh, look at this. Look at the resonance. You see this?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So many people can relate. And I think that it's just the time that is right now is really, I feel a time we're just really coming to a fork in the road within ourselves, first and foremost, and then externally, but internally, that fork in the road. And um, I want to clarify that I don't think that anyone should do anything that they're not feeling to do. And I would urge anyone to seek wisdom before they made any decision that can affect their lives. Anyone. But I want to go to this. I want to go to this feeling of this fork in the road in our process. Do you know what I mean by that in me? And if you do know what I mean, how is that feeling for you? Can you describe what it means for you at this particular time, collectively and individually?
Yes. So the fork in the road is this perception based on duality. It's
Mm,
either left or right or wrong. But here's the thing, when you are aware, you go through this process to transcend the duality and enter into a totality.
mm,
So, what would I do? I'm at a fork in the road. Do I go left? Do I go right? I spread my wings out and hover above ground,
mm,
however high
mm.
I need to be,
Oh,
in order to see which path I want to take. I
I love
have options.
I
I can
love
get off the path if I want.
I love it.
And that's the thing, that people who are awake, they see things still as this separation.
Mm,
I saw somewhere in the comments a reference to sheep, right?
mm, mm,
Yo, that's still a form of separation. That doesn't make you aware. It, when you use terms like that, it takes you straight back to the woke group. That's the group that uses those terms. I use those terms early 2000s, late 99,
mhm,
early 2000s, and I thought I was just so advanced.
mhm.
The more I grew, the more aware I became, the more aware I was of how little I actually know.
Yes.
I'm very proud to be a sheep in the flock of God.
Mm,
I have no shame in being a sheep and following when I need to follow, knowing that the dogs that are sent after me are trained not to harm me, but
mhm.
to use that fear to trigger me to return back to where I belong, the
Oh,
safe places. I'm done with those types of, terms and that type of logic. You are not here to wake anyone up. And to think that your journey, your value is contingent on someone else's compliance, that is flat out full on demonic behavior. I'm
mm,
not even joking. I'm not accusing anyone of this. I'm
right.
explaining the behavior.
Yes.
I'm a demonologist. My primary specialty is exorcism.
Mm,
If we're going to use these typical, words that are known because of their long-term use by religion, I am a demonologist exorcist specialist.
mm,
That's what I do.
mm,
And the thing is, that's the definition of demonic behavior.
mm, mm,
Attempting to really force the subjugation of another consciousness,
mm,
another sovereign,
mm. Yeah.
those who are truly evolving within themselves. They're no longer here to awaken others. They are here to respect where you choose to be and to support you when you request it.
Mm. Oh, a word, a word. That's so
Yeah.
deep.
And this realization, we're all equal.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, we literally truly are. If I was woke, I would sit here in my perfect little woke outfit. I would
Nothing
probably
is
have more plants and more crystals, and I would remind everyone I'm much more powerful than you, because I am.
mm,
But because I'm aware, that helps me to understand and rein that in, not to humble myself, but to understand my proper place, which is
mm,
what? I'm much more powerful than you so that I could defend you, so that I could help guide
Mm,
you when you seek that. So
love
I
it.
can give you that sense of empowerment to return you back to your proper place of power beside me.
Ooh, a word, a word, a word. And ooh, okay, I want to check out the comments real quick. I see wise words. I see I'm learning. I appreciate your words in me. I see so many things, but I feel resonance. What about you? You feel all this resonance with our community?
I do.
I love
I
it.
do. I want to share a very profound conversation I was having with someone dear to me. This person's very, very dear to me. And we were talking about really profound things, how you and I are talking right now. And it was something along the lines of, they're like, but I don't think like you.
Mm,
And I was like, but you understand what I'm saying. So, yes, you do.
mm,
I just came to that conclusion slightly ahead of you. Because
mm,
if your brain did not process the way mine processes, we would not have resonance and you would not be drawn to me nor understand a single concept that I share.
mm, mm. Yes. Wow. I love it. I love it. And what happens when people who are going through this thing just get so isolated within themselves and just so isolated from society, and they just feel so pushed on the fringes of society so much until they just feel like they don't belong? What do you think happens, um, as far as internalizing, and just how does that affect how they show up in the world? And how does this tie into mental health? I want to kind of clarify this too. Earlier, when I was talking, really more than anything, I was talking about my experience working in the behavioral health field. Okay. And I think that that's a field where you can learn about so many wonderful people who have just been pushed to the side of society. You know, mental health and behavioral health, you have so many profoundly gifted people, but nobody's paying them attention. They're gifted.
Mm,
Nobody's paying them attention. There are these expectations and then this, internalization. Well, I'm crazy. I'm worthless. I don't have anything to offer anybody, but that's so far from the truth.
mhm.
So I would like to know, how does this tie into any of those things: mental health, behavioral health, intellectual and or developmental disabilities, even lack of self-confidence? How do these things tie in together, and how does that affect how you show up in the world and how you rest within yourself?
Right. So that neurodivergency, that ability to reach levels of awareness that go beyond the duality, that's the soil that encompasses the roots of the tree that you're becoming. So it's the very root causation of it.
Mm,
Um, Going into some of the things you mentioned. So the aloneness, the isolation, that is a very, very, very common denominator, symptom of people going through true, profound ascension.
mm,
Okay. And part of the reason that happens is to prevent you from first taking on more people projects
mm,
and being too busy to work on yourself. It's
mm,
taking away all the distractions.
mm,
Secondly, it's preventing those who want to pull you, drag you
mm.
kicking and screaming back into that mental matrix.
Yeah.
It prevents them from having access to you.
Mm. Girl, a word.
Yeah, and a lot of us take that as like we're being punished.
Yeah.
Why does no one want to hang out with us anymore? I get it though. I get it because I went through the same exact thing of like, wow, did I do something?
Mm,
Like none of my girlfriends call me anymore. They're all still going to bars.
mm,
And I mean, granted, I never really went to bars with them, but they would still consistently try and invite me. And then one day they just stopped inviting me. And
mm.
I was like, what just happened?
Wow.
I don't know if I did something.
Mm,
So that's the first and foremost. Um, it will cause a shift in the way you perceive what you're trying to process.
mhm,
You will feel it much more deeply. The more you ascend to higher levels of cognition, higher levels of awareness, because you need both. They're two
mhm,
separate things,
mhm.
but you need both. the more you ascend to those levels of awareness and cognition, the more sensitized you become to your environment, to people's words, to things that are not spoken out loud. I mean, it's just, it's intense. It's very, very intense. And it really ties into what your purpose is.
Oh,
Your life is preparing you for what you are returning back to, which is what your purpose is.
wow.
I've been what I am right now. I've always been someone who's been able to see beyond all the veils, just pierce through everything and see with clarity. Um, just because I've been always been able to do that does not mean I've shared that my whole life.
Right.
Most of my life, I've hidden that away. I've
Mm.
absolutely hidden it away, and that was to protect myself. I still remember witch hunts. I still remember the Holy Crusades and all of that. You know,
Ooh, I bet. And you talk about remembering that, and I want to talk about even with the past life memory and the present life being persecuted
mm,
for being who you are, who you know. And I have experienced that being persecuted for who you are, these natural abilities, and even your natural way. It doesn't even have to be spiritual, but just who you are naturally, how different you are, how differently you think, how differently you respond to things. I want you to continue because I feel like this is something that somebody out there is feeling so deeply, and you're just articulating every single thing that they've been feeling and couldn't put their finger on. It may even be someone's first time here, but can you just speak from the heart about how you understand how that is, and how you came to where you are,
mhm, hmm.
if you feel comfortable doing so? Girl, you know, don't hardly wear makeup. Don't make this be the day where I embarrass your whole podcast. Of all of mine.
um, mm, it, it's it required a lot of destruction.
Mm, mm, wow.
You can't be liberated as long as the cage exists.
Oh, mm,
Every single aspect of my life had to be deconstructed. And it's you're pairing pain with an increase in your sensitization. You know, you're being sensitized to certain things. And what would normally feel like a very stinging type of paper cut, when you truly go through that spiritual process, it suddenly feels like your entire limb has been skinned
mm.
and there's no way to stop it. And there's no one to understand. At least that's what it feels like. You guys have to remember, part of my purpose involves me going through things well in advance of everyone else.
Mm,
Not because I'm better, not because I'm stronger, not because any of those ego based things. I am properly trained and prepared for my purpose through my life. That means I have to experience it and have the appropriate amount of time to be completely destroyed, completely rebuilt, and be fully functioning again in order to be able to help you to understand why you're going through what you're going through.
ooh. Oh, fam. How are you feeling about this out there? Oh, are you feeling this? I'm looking in the comment section. Ooh, girl, look at all this resonance. You see all this resonance?
Yeah, this question right here: does a reconstruction come with severe pain and past life recollections combined? It depends. It
Mm,
can.
mm.
It can. It can come with all sorts of different types of experiences. Um, yeah.
Wow. And what is that term? I cannot think of I want to say Drabinski, and that's not it.
Dabrowski?
Dabrowski, yes.
Yeah.
What is that term? Positive disintegration? Is that the
Yes.
concept?
Yeah.
Girl, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, Dr. Dabrowski, he's a very, very, very talented psychologist. I think he was from Poland. And his body of work was developing the theory of positive disintegration. He did a few quite a few other things, but that was the main thing that I absolutely fell in love with. He had this theory that you go through these 5 stages of disintegrating your identity as society has programmed you to be. And as you go through each stage, you level up and you reach higher and higher levels of elevated awareness. And it's the very thing that can make you into the profound person you're created to be. But if you are afraid, if the process was too intense, you'll go right back down to level 1 and start all over again.
Mm,
Most people don't get past level 2 or 3.
mm,
There's 5 levels, and it's this thing of realizing, because he doesn't talk about ascension. Okay, oh, I want to make that very clear, guys. He didn't talk about ascension. It had nothing to do with spirituality. It had nothing to do with woke or any of that. It had everything to do with the hyper excitabilities of certain types of brain processing. Now, part of the reason I came across his work because I am a mother of profoundly gifted children.
mm,
I'm not talking about children who are very smart and score straight A's. I am talking about children who can and one day will be world leaders. And
mm,
I'm not talking about psychopathic world leaders. I'm talking about, people like Dr. Martin Luther King, who was able to see, he was able to transcend the duality, the separation, the segregation, all of that. He was a neurodivergent, by the way.
mm, mm,
He was a neurodivergent. So it's this thing of the difficulty that I faced being a mother to these type of children. People think if your children are very smart, it's very easy. No, I spoke to a specialist when my oldest was around 3 years old, 4 years old. And I was voicing some of my frustration with the lack of support from family and whatnot because he's so smart and so advanced. And she told me, no one will get it unless their child is like yours. The reality is, your child exists on the same spectrum as disabled children, just on the other end of the spectrum. So it's basically like a disability if you don't have the support you need. And no one is going to be kind to you because you're smart,
mm,
and she introduced me to Dr. Dabrowski's work. And what she was trying to explain to me, I look back now and I realized she was actually trying to explain to me neurodivergency.
mm,
And, I don't think the term had been widely spread yet, but that's what she was trying to explain to me, that my child is neurodivergent. When I
mm,
say I have profoundly gifted children, this is a child who took an official IQ test, and I let him know before the test, we need to score at least a 145 to be accepted into the Davidson Young Scholar Program, which will give you a $25,000 grant, which I could then pay for him to go to Stanford University at 3 years old.
mm,
Okay. When I say profoundly gifted, this
mm,
is what I'm talking about. And I told him before his IQ test started, and he goes, okay. I told him I would buy him a toy.
mm.
Just do your best. I'll buy you a toy, but we need at least a 145. He got bored in the middle of that. When he came out, he had a very stressed out look on his face, and he starts apologizing to me. It's like, it's okay, you score whatever you score. And he then admits to me that he got bored because, and at like 3 or 4 years old, how did he know this? He said they kept asking me the same question using different words, so I got bored. But and then he goes, but don't worry, mommy, I made sure to answer enough questions to get 145.
Wow.
Right? but we got his test back, and I think he miscalculated by one because he
Oh,
got a 143.
oh,
And then
wow.
finally, I was just like, what am I doing to you as your mother? What am I doing because I need the ego boost of my 3-year-old going to Stanford University?
Mm,
We don't need that.
mm,
We don't need that. And if that's something he did need, we would have had the ability to do that for him,
mm, mm,
right? So it
mm.
has a lot to do with being aware of what your actions and your intentions really are based in.
Oh,
I realize this is my ego. No,
mm,
I can't do this to him.
mm,
And so I didn't. And I still get a lot of flack from family. Like, I can't believe you gave up on that. That was such a huge opportunity.
mm.
Is his life messed up? I would say he's a happy person.
Right.
I would say he is a well-rounded, well-balanced person. And the thing was, when I spoke to this specialist later and I was telling her about it and that I was frustrated, like, I don't know how to get him to comply. And she helped me to understand he doesn't need that test.
Mm,
And I was like, but the Young Scholars Program and the grant and all of that. And she goes, but why do you want that?
mm,
To afford all his classes and this, does he need that? And I was like, yes. And she told me, you've been teaching him this whole time, right? And he's, yeah. And she looks at his chart and he's like, so he began reading at 17 months and he college level by the time he was like 2.5. Yes.
mm,
So why can't you continue to do that with him?
mm.
But I'm not Stanford. And she was the one who said, he picked you, not Stanford.
Oh,
Mm,
word.
yeah. Yeah. And I was like, well, I want to at least know what I'm dealing with. And she had talked to him already privately. And she was like, you're dealing with a child who my modest guesstimate would be in excess of 180 IQ. And I
Mm,
was like, okay. And she goes, do you know what that means? And I was like, no. She goes, they think that Einstein was around 160 to 180. I think he's in excess of 180. And I
wow.
was like, so what does that mean? And she goes, that means he's your son. And I was just like, so I don't need to do anything. She goes, you're already doing everything you need to do.
Wow.
So that's the thing. Like, how do we parent ourselves?
Oh,
How do we do that? Are we doing what I was doing before I spoke to this profound woman who specializes in these children, these profoundly gifted children? Are we basing it on ego? Because that's what the woke movement is. It's this draconian program to hyperstimulate your ego in order to get you to participate in this spiritual compete compare program.
mm, mm. Oh, the way it all ties in.
It all ties in.
Oh,
And that child of mine, he was assessed with having ADHD. He was assessed with having sensory integration problems, just like me. He's
mm-hmm,
also assessed as having Asperger's, just
mm,
like me, like all of these things. And
mm-hmm.
what are all of these things? If you have those conditions, if you have learning disabilities, if you have emotional disturbances, psychological conditions, you, by definition, are a neurodivergent.
Oh,
By definition, you are a neurodivergent.
wow, wow. What about even processing differently, processing on a multidimensional level? And tell me what that means. I don't have any notes. We still having a conversation, but I want to know more in your words. What does that mean? Because for some people, the things you mentioned may not necessarily apply, but multidimensional can absolutely apply, and they may not have even heard of multidimensional.
Yes. So I am very cognitive that I am in a physical body, but I also exist out of it.
Yes.
I am aware that there are things going on in areas of the world that I am not occupied.
Mm,
So it's not me watching the news, it's me being aware of things that are going on. In addition to that, I am aware there are things going on beyond any physicality, any geographic location.
mm,
It's this awareness. It's often information that's not quite tangible.
mm,
It's hard to quantify unless you're, being given validation from this and that and all sorts of different things.
mm,
For me, and this is just personal to me, I don't know if it will be, something that will apply to everyone. But for me, oftentimes when I experience these shifts in energies and I need validation because I don't always believe my gifts when it comes to my personal journey. I'll see the news clippings, the headlines, or whatever it is, the tweet, something on social media that confirms it. Like, oh, that's what I was feeling.
Mm,
Anywho,
mm.
like to me, it's just like, oh, okay. Well, what did I need to know that for?
Wow.
You
Wow.
know,
Yeah.
multidimensional um, processing also is your capacity to process, cognitively process multiple sensory stimulation or information at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So part of how that expresses for me, I could be listening to one song and then singing out loud or silently a second song and playing a third song in my head as a fourth song is playing somewhere in the ether.
Yes. Oh,
And yeah,
okay.
people are often like, "You okay?" I'm like,
You're
"Yes."
just fine, right? Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And people may not understand. You may be looking away, but you know exactly what they're saying. You know exactly what's going on within them, within the conversation, with around you, in different dimensions, everything all at the same time. What happens when someone tries to fit, not just someone, teachers, parents, society, the world, tries to fit someone like that into a box, into a cage? What happens?
One of two things. First, the child, the person, um, becomes fractured in order to fit.
Mm,
You can't shove someone with a profound greatness into a tiny space.
mm,
Fracturing will occur.
mm.
Um, a lot of their most profound qualities will then enter into the shadow self. Your shadow self is not your evil side, you guys. Your shadow aspects are where you hide your most powerful aspects because society, your environment, your family, whoever it is, told you don't have permission to be that, do that, tap into that. Okay. The second option is the person, the child, will wild the F out.
Mm, mm.
So I believe in exercising all my options. You never know which one you're going to get with me. It depends.
That's
Will
it.
I shut down? Will I wild out? Do you want to risk that?
Mhm. Okay.
know? And that's the thing is that part of the reason why I can tap into both is because I've taken so much time to develop my perception of myself, to really develop my sense of um, how aware I am of what I need to do
Mm,
when I need to do it.
I love that.
It's so hard these days for
Mhm.
me to just keep quiet while someone maltreats me. I want
Oh,
to share this story. I went, girl, you already know what I'm going to talk about.
I'm gonna put myself on mute, girl, because you know we don't need it today.
No, I'm just let, let me just breathe it out for a second. I'm right back
Yeah,
there.
you put that thing back there. Ooh, goodness, girl.
So the other day, I had gone to Whole Foods in a downtown area so that I could purchase groceries. And I go to the self checkout, and my shopping cart was fairly full. I go to self checkout, and this woman, there's one other person there. I think it was a man or a couple, and she wasn't bothering them. Okay. This older woman walked straight to me with her clipboard and starts staring at me and my husband as we scan our groceries. And when I say I can process in a multidimensional manner, I knew exactly what she thought the moment she saw me. And y'all, I was dressed looking like a bona fide hobo because I was not planning on coming out the car to go get groceries. I was just going to go through a drive through and get coffee, but we ended up going getting groceries. Here's the thing, I don't care how I'm dressed. You treat me with a dignity that is appropriate for a human being,
Yes.
right? So I'm scanning, my husband's scanning, and she continues to stand behind me with her clipboard, side eyeing me. Like literally, I can reach back and touch her. That's how close she was, right? And near the end of me scanning, I totally was like, this is just getting really uncomfortable. It's so unnecessary. Like, this is offensive. This is just offensive. And I was in a rush to leave. And so I was like, I won't say anything. I won't say, I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. I could not help speaking my truth in a very empowered way. As I walked past her, I paused just long enough to look her in the eyes and tell her, I need you to know you made me very uncomfortable standing there watching me scan my items. Oh, no, I wasn't. I said, yes, you were. And to have spent nearly $300 on groceries, but still be treated as though I'm some common thief, that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
And she kept trying to deny it. And it's like, woman, do not add liar to your list of racist, classist sins. Hush your
Yes.
face. Hush your face. I don't care that you're working at Whole Foods. You're still working in a grocery store. That means you are in a public setting with
Yes.
human beings. If you're
Yes.
incapable of being a respectful, dignified human being, sit your ass in the back room because
Mm-hmm.
that's where you belong. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care if it's Safeway, Whole Foods. I don't care if it's the dollar store.
Yes.
If you
Yes.
can't conduct yourself with that dignity
Yeah.
and honor other people's dignity,
Yes.
face it towards me. We're going to talk.
That's
We're
right.
going to talk. And as we were walking out, this other woman was at, I don't know if it's like the customer service area or something. She's like, I hope you guys have an amazing day. And I was like, I got to walk. I'm running late. I wanted to file a complaint.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
absolutely wanted to file a complaint of, hey, listen, we have an issue here of discrimination. I understand I look like a hobo, but unfortunately for you, not only am I not a hobo, and even if I was, it don't matter.
No.
It
Yeah.
does not matter. It does not matter what's in my bank account. If your staff is basically being accusatory in their behavior, that's public embarrassment. That is like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no. But again, I
PR
was
nightmare,
running
especially for Whole Foods. A
late.
PR nightmare.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you guys, I am very aware of all of the different things that I could have done to make that woman's life hell. I embarrassed her enough by letting her know, not only are you wrong about me, I am highly educated, extremely intelligent, and verbose in
Yes.
my articulation of my feelings.
Yes.
Don't,
Yes.
don't try that with me. I didn't even use bad words.
Exactly. And like I
Mhm.
told you yesterday, I'm so glad we weren't together.
Girl, I would have used bad words because if I saw you hyped, I would have been like, "Oh no, girl, step back. We fighting now. Now we fighting." Yeah, no.
It would have been cool, but she would have left out of there trying to, you know, get herself, get those pieces we just took out. So,
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah. It's a lot when people realize the difference between woke and aware. So woke in that situation would have just probably namaste and like compassion for you. You're in a lower state. No, I am aware. You're not aware? Let me make you aware what my boundaries are, what depth of dignity you will honor in my
Yes.
presence.
Yes.
She could have watched me from across the store. That's fine. Keep your distance. Don't
Mhm.
make it too obvious. But when you try and insult my intelligence, she
Yeah.
was holding her like this. And I'm like, honey, you want to scan this for me?
Right.
Because like,
Right.
and here's the thing, people will be like, oh no, that was so unnecessary. Tell me why that was unnecessary. Well, because Emmy, you're woke and you kind of just have to like like compassion. And that was compassion for me, because for
Exactly.
times,
Yes.
too many times I've had people do
Right.
just, too much. Another situation years ago, I was in a Walmart this time. I was scanning something, and I had we were doing grocery shopping, again, self-scanning or self-checkout. And I had scanned the orange juice and I put in the shopping cart. And then I realized, oh, I should put it in a bag. And so I got back out of the shopping cart while my husband kept scanning, and I put it in a bag and I put it back in the cart. Again, another older woman, she walks to me, she pushes my shopping cart out of the way, and I'm like, excuse me. And then she goes like this to me, like she scoots me out of the way. And she's going like this to my face. You're frozen. And
It's
she
frozen
goes
because
to
I get my water because girl.
so she goes like that to me, right? And then she takes out my orange juice and tries to scan it again. At which point I grab the orange juice. I'm like, that's already been scanned. Do you have an issue? And she goes, no, you didn't. And that's when I got loud. I was like, are you accusing me of stealing inside the store? I've worked public safety. I've worked loss prevention. You're not allowed to do that to me.
Hmm.
And so she tried to scan. I said, you need to get a manager right now. And, she ignored me. And so I told another worker, you need to get me a manager right now. And so they brought someone else over to us. And the person that comes to us, she's like, hi, I was told to come help you. How can I help you? I said, are you a manager? No. Are you a floor supervisor? No. Then you can't help me. I need the store manager right now. And it just so happened he was walking into the store wearing his suit and everything. And they were like, oh, this woman's upset. And he's like, what happened? I said, are you the store manager? He goes, yes, I am. I said, can you please come over here? I need to explain something grievous to you. And I let him know that at no point did she ask me if that orange juice was scanned. She assaulted me. On top of that, she tried to double charge me. She publicly embarrassed me. She accused me of theft before I even left the store. At no point did she look through what I've scanned to confirm it had been scanned. And what are you going to do about this? He looked at her like, "Mm." And I was like, by the way, I understand the legal nature of this. What will you do about this? And he goes, we're going to have to retrain her. We're going to talk to her. And I told him, I'm not asking you to fire this woman, but you absolutely need to retrain her, because I'm aware this is a lawsuit right here.
Hmm.
And he goes, I understand you're aware. I said, okay, just so you know,
Yes,
your stuff does this to me again, I will be seeking legal monetary compensation. And he
absolutely.
was just, thank you for understanding. I'm going to talk to her. And that's the thing, you guys. I was not out of line
Mm-mm.
being aware and verbalizing that my rights,
Mhm.
my dignity is being infringed upon.
Yes.
Those who are awake don't believe in that. They
Mm.
believe in meditating over it. They believe in compassion, turn the other cheek, no.
Um, I'm sweet, and I'm also from the University of I wish would.
Albumofo?
Right? No, absolutely not. And I think that's a very important point because, especially as people who are empathic, people who are sensitive, there's this expectation a lot of times for us to treat everybody good but ourselves. And I love the way you tie that into the self compassion piece. Having compassion for yourself, respecting your dignity, knowing when your dignity and your honor is just being infringed upon. I really like how you said that. And I want to go back to something you said earlier about how you are in person versus how you are on the live streams. And I think it also ties into awareness too, because being aware of being the totality that you are is a very important part of awareness to me. I really
Mhm.
believe that it is. Just like we're not all light and love, we're we're all that we are, you know, and we are a totality, and that is a beautiful thing in and of itself. What have you to say?
Well, I think that a lot of people, they get into that woke culture simply because they already feel badly about themselves,
Mm,
about who they are. They feel less than. And I'm really here just I want all of you to know you don't have to identify as anything outside of your identity,
mm,
who you are. And who I am sometimes is contingent on who you ask me to be, what part of me you ask to show up.
mhm,
Sometimes,
mhm,
other times, most times, um, I don't care what you're doing. I
mhm,
don't care if you ask me to show up to some battle or some war. If I
mhm.
don't feel like it, if I feel like it is
Yes.
no point of mine, like, no,
Mhm,
no, I'm not going to respond.
mhm.
A lot of people, though, it's just they don't know any better.
Yeah.
They don't understand yet the difference between being awake and aware. And because the woke ones are so loud, they are so prominent, they think that that's the ideal. It's not.
It's really not. Yeah.
It's not. It's really, really not. The people who have tried to destroy me are people who are high vibe,
Mm,
woke people.
mm.
Guess what? Because Dolphin Dreams is hilarious. She wrote, "High vibe, positive only." I
Right.
felt the sarcasm through the screen. But, that's the thing. People who aspire to be high vibe really are not understanding what it means to have a high vibration.
Right.
So, based on the laws of oscillatory rate, if you have a high vibration, you have a low frequency.
Mm,
A higher vibration lowers your oscillation rate, it lowers your frequency, it causes you to become more dense. Do you want to be dense?
mhm.
I'm sorry. I just had to have that.
Girl, here you go for some of that salt over there.
I got to sip. My throat chakra is clearing out tremendously today.
That's deep though.
But and that's a thing, you know, high vibration, if you look at unified field physics, if you look at all of those different things, if you look at information pertaining to standing scalar waves, morphogenetic templates, I mean, I could come out with all of these very hard to pronounce, hard to figure out terms. If you look at all of that information, a high vibration rate is not the business. It's just not. It's not. And those who have a high vibration have a tendency to agitate others a lot more deeply.
Mm,
Because what happens when you vibrate? It causes agitation of that fluid. So that's why they're like that.
mm,
You know,
mm,
they're high vibe. And so they try and pressure inject a drop of their consciousness, their energy, their mindset into your field and agitate you. And next thing you know, you're believing what they believe.
mm, mm,
Like for me, because I am aware of what gravity I might possibly have with people, I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm asking you to hear what I say, consider it, see if it fits in with what you know for yourself. Do a little bit of reading, poke around on the internet, and see how you feel about things. Not
mm,
to prove I'm right, but to just see how you feel about things.
mm,
Years ago, when people used to love to come on my live streams on Facebook because they're woke, right? And the information that I'm sharing is so different than what they've read in so many books. They will try and challenge me on the live stream and talk about all sorts of different things and bring up this and that person's work. And it's like, okay, well, I gave you some terms. Go look that up and then come back another time and let me know what you think then.
mm,
Because you don't have to believe me. As a matter of fact, look up the terms that I used and prove me wrong.
mm.
And one of two things would happen. Excuse me. They would either come back on the next live stream or a few live streams later and be extremely talkative about what they found, and they feel very alive, they feel very inspired, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, tell me more things to look up," which is beautiful. Love it. I love it. You're learning for yourself, you're teaching yourself. Or they just never come back at all because now they feel dumb being what they said, because they realize uh, what they were being taught was not the actuality of what something is. Now, I'm not going to say that I know everything and everyone else is wrong. I will say that I know information and perceive it in a different way than most people. And that's what makes me neurodivergent. I'm not interested in the ego based clout of knowing more than other people. So then why would I say those things? Because it's the truth I see it to be, and that's it. If you
Mm,
believe something as truth, you don't need other people to believe you. You need other people to believe you when you don't actually, truly, genuinely believe what you believe is truth. Look at
mm,
people with religion. You have to agree with them. Why? If you believe what you believe, I'm no danger to you. If you are
mm,
living your life in accordance with what your God is telling you to do, how could I ever harm you? Your God is omnipotent, omnipowerful, omnipresent. What could I ever do as a human being
mm,
against you? So then why do you need me to no longer exist? And that's a lot of what's going on. First it was the religious people, the religious people, and now spirituality is the new religion. It's the new
mm,
form of control.
mm,
So just be aware, be aware of what you're allowing yourself to participate in. Be aware of what you're taking into yourself. That's all I ask. It doesn't have to be words that come from me. I don't know everything, you guys. I'm a human being just like you. And you will have people who will have watched my body of work and they will regurgitate the exact same things I say.
mm,
Question it. Are they as committed to that belief? Can you easily rattle them? Do they need you to agree? Are they vehemently defending it? Or are they simply like, oh, that's interesting. I never heard of that.
mm,
I wonder what that is. I'm going to look into that. You have to be aware of the people you are placing on pedestals. Who are they? What is their intention with you, your presence, your life, your energy? And if you don't have the answers to that, like readily available, why are you following that person? That
mm,
includes me. If
mm,
you don't have the answer to why, I have this resonance with you, if you haven't even asked that question, you absolutely should. Why does she resonate with me? And if it's something that's outside of, she helps me to see myself more clearly for who I am, then maybe I'm not the right fit for you. And that's okay.
mm,
That's okay. I want you to have what you need, even if what you need no longer has anything to do with me. That's the
mm.
difference between woke and aware. We each have our own journey.
Yes, absolutely.
What are your thoughts on all of that?
I agree. I agree. A beloved elder of mine, divine peace to her soul, she would always say, everybody on their own journey, everybody on their journey. And it's so true. We are all on our journey. And that is for us as individuals. We also have a collective journey. But I think that we need to, it goes back to self compassion, it goes back to observing, it goes back to awareness, understanding that at the end of the day, we are all learning, we are all growing, no matter who you are in this world. I don't care what you know. I don't care how many degrees you have. I don't care how many experiences you've had. I don't care how many experiences you haven't had, how many degrees you don't have. We are all learning and growing. Doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what you are, who you are. We are all on this journey as individuals, learning, all on our own journeys, and we're all on the higher journey, also learning. That's what I
Yeah.
think.
I would love, love, love to hear from everyone. Um,
Oh,
I want you to share a story of when someone woke approached you.
mm.
I don't know if I don't know if I mean, do you think that would be a good thing? I would
I
love to
think
hear from
so.
them.
I think so. I think that would be a great thing. And if we have time, there was a question, and I wanted to know how this was, how people were relating out there. And I think we have some touching stories. Yeah.
Ooh, I love this. I love this. When I find that I'm being intentionally targeted, I become completely aware of how I'm about to react accordingly. Absolutely. I
Mm-hmm.
follow the strings and I play out certain behaviors. And if I don't like the outcome of the behavior I'm about to choose, then I select a different option.
Mm,
Yeah. So
mm,
that's super interesting. You have to have some degree of precognitive ability to do that. So,
mm,
and a lot of people don't realize that's what you're doing when you're following the strings. It
mm,
takes you to the next part, dependent on what you pick
mm.
for the next part.
Indeed.
Super interesting. Let's see. Do you remember what the question was?
Okay. You mean the question you asked just now?
Well, the question that you had seen earlier.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it might be my question. And I was just asking, wait a minute, sorry. Did you see a question from one of our beautiful community members, or do you mean from me as a community member? Which one?
I see yours. I see yours
Okay,
here.
okay, you see mine. So
Who
someone
knows?
asked a question.
Who knows the difference between vibration and frequency?
Ah, yes, yes, yes.
Do you guys know the difference between your vibratory rate and your frequency?
Mm. Now me want to know.
So being a higher vibration is not the goal. It's not the goal. Even being high frequency is not the goal. The goal is to be as solid within your anchoring place as possible. um, what a lot of what's been going on with the woke culture, these are individuals who make it a point to try and reach higher and higher and higher levels of frequency, because the more you achieve, the more valuable you are, right? Wrong, 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 wrong. So it's the equivalent of you going on your tippy toes on a ledge to be able to be as tall as you can be, right? Because you want to go as high as possible. Well, what happens when you load that squat bar across your back and do a squat on the ledge on your tippy toes? You're going to be very unstable. Very, very unstable. And because you're going to have to use so much of your energy to try and balance yourself, because from the start you were not balanced, you're going to be much easier to knock over, to knock down, to coerce into doing things to get you out of that situation. That's why they teach you that in those high vibe type of environments. It destabilizes you. Now, what I'm trying to teach you is to stand on the ground, the floor, with your feet flat. Or if you want, you could elevate your heels by standing on a weight plate with just your heels, and that will target certain areas that you want to target. And then go ahead and squat when you're ready. That's a very, very solid stance that you have. If your knees are positioned properly, if your ankles and feet and all of that is lined up just right, you have the proper mechanics. How are you going to fall like that? You're
Mm,
not. You're not. And besides, this is not an environment where you're going to be blindsided in order to get you into a better position of compliance.
mhm,
No, no more of that. You guys have to exit those types of environments where people make it a point to blindside you in order to really, really get a hold of you, you
Yes.
know? Um, let's see. So Catherine's obviously K33. She wrote oscillation. Um, wait, what? What is this? Lisa says, my niece told me I need to be more woke to the Catholic Church. What? I told her, no, I'm good. I'll follow my soul before I follow a specific religion ever again. She told you to to be woke to the Catholic Church. Um, what does that mean? Like, yeah, yeah. She's. Thank you for. Remember, Baba.
Yes. We love you, Baba.
Because that's like, and it's not about Lisa, it's about the niece.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Like the term woke comes from a culture, a subculture that is like absolutely shunned by the Catholic Church. So if you truly are Catholic for the niece, to request that someone be more woke to the church is kind of like bordering on blasphemous behavior.
Hmm. I have a different perspective. No, not a different. I have an additional perspective.
Mhm.
My humble suggestion for the niece would be if she wants that to turn out the way she wants it to turn out, not that it's going to, but you should really be mindful about what you're asking about. Because to be more woke about something, are you really asking to be more aware? I know these are different terms, but woke to the history, woke to the realities, the things that continue to happen. And I'm going to stop. I'm going to drink my water.
Girl, I believe in dehydration. Let me tell you.
Hey, be
I'm
careful
just
what you
saying.
say. You just might get it. You just might get it.
Here's the thing. Not trying to attack anyone. Uh,
Yeah.
the thing is this. I say this as someone who was born into Catholicism, was baptized, confirmed, have all my sacraments, went through the full indoctrination course from kindergarten all the way through, graduated a Catholic high school, and even considered joining a convent as a Carmelite nun. I was very immersed in these teachings. And the thing is this, we were always programmed to believe that witches are bad and evil. Last I checked, witches did not do an entire holy crusade.
Mm.
I'm just saying. Last I checked, witches did not commit genocide of tribal peoples in order to convert them to a belief system that was not of their forefathers. Last I checked, I need to drink some water.
Because I need some Gatorade.
I'm just saying, and I'm not saying that Catholicism is inherently evil or bad.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
just saying, what do you want your auntie to be woke to?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I don't understand the request of the niece.
Mm.
Dear niece, if you believe what you believe, you will not be requesting your aunt to agree with you and share your beliefs,
Yeah.
because it's kind of like the safety in numbers concept.
Mm.
That's what I find about a lot of, those types of religions. They only have safety in numbers. Excuse me. They need to have everyone agree or at least be the majority. Oh, Teresa's in the house. Teresa says, give her some research papers on the papal bulls and the original origins. You know what I'm saying? Over here, over here, over here. She mentioned the Council of Nicaea. Mm-hmm.
Hey.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Has
like,
she
deep
read
you
the
want to go? How deep you want to go into this wokeness, right?
She needs to read the Nag Hammadi. She needs to read all these other books that were also written at the same times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jesus had 12 disciples, not the three or four or have six that's mentioned in the Bible. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they removed so many books,
Yeah.
so many. And again, this is not about attacking Catholicism. This is about shining a light on people who don't know what it is they're believing.
Mm.
Ooh, talk about shining a light. Look at you on the screen, girl.
Ooh, girl. That's that sun and that shea butter. Let me stop.
Ooh, oh man.
Oh, wow. Deep.
Yeah. Um, I feel like there's something profound that is kind of just resting in your heart about
Mm.
something that ties to this subject. Um, do you feel anything that you want to share?
Wow. You know, there's a lot that is in me, and this may not be necessarily specifically to the title, but I would like to share this with you all. So, when I was younger, someone I loved very much and still love very much said that I talk like a man, right? And
Mhm.
so my natural voice was very deep, very deep. And I loved my voice. I loved the sound of it. It just was calming and soothing to me. But when I heard those words from somebody I loved so much and looked up to so much, it made me feel a way. And I started practicing speaking much higher so that I wouldn't talk like a man, right? And that affected me in a lot of different ways because it really just made me push down this natural depth that I have. I still had it, but not just the depth of voice, but even the depth of my essence, the depth of who I am to my core. Everything I just kind of just kept right there, so
Mhm.
far down. Whoa, this sun is like. And so I want to tell you that some of the things that other people may tell us about ourselves, even if they have good intentions, some of the things that other people may tell us about ourselves to make us feel a way, even if they don't mean to make us feel a way, these can be some of our most treasured aspects. So I would just like to speak on that and say to you all, because so many of you out there love my voice, I'm just coming to the part where I am sharing my natural voice again. You know, I've only shared it like when I'm really, really comfortable, but just understand, be observant of who you are, be aware of who you are. And I would say, learn to understand the voice of your soul and learn to discern that and learn to differentiate that from the voice of external projections.
Mm.
And it's a
Ooh,
process, but we're worth it.
the sentiment of learning to discern the voice of your soul. That's profound. That is so, so profound. Because how many of you know what it sounds like when your higher self speaks? How many of you know? What does your higher self sound like? If you know what your higher self sounds like, could you please put in the comments hashtag I know?
Mm, I love it.
And if you are not aware of what your voice sounds like, your higher self, what it sounds like when it speaks to you, please put in the comments hashtag not yet, because you
Mm,
will. Eventually, you will. But we're both, I'm pretty sure both of us are super curious, super de duper curious to know how many of you know what your higher self sounds like. Universal D knows. Mhm. Dolphin Dreams knows. Like super curious. There, that's a very brave thing to put. Hi, E Bunny.
as they're putting this in me, I'm curious. Are there any services that you have to help those who are, and I'm asking this too because that just makes me think. I was talking to someone not too long ago, and the person told me that, well, they didn't even know they had a higher self, right?
Mm.
And they're like, I don't even know how that voice would sound. I don't even know what that is. How do I know the voice of the higher self? What
Mm.
is that? Learning more. Do you
Mm.
have any services, classes, products to help those who are in that position to learn more, and even those who say they know, to even, you know, become closer to understanding and interacting with their higher selves?
Yeah, I think the best service to select would be a mentorship,
Mm,
because I would work with you one on one, not just to learn how your higher self sounds, but to learn how to safely communicate with your higher self, how to maintain the work that I did for you, how to really, really empower yourself within your journey. You know, it's really this thing of people think that their journey is only single faceted. That's a flat surface. You're not. It's a multifaceted thing. If you are a gem in the vault of the Lord, uh, I'm sure that the Lord is not going to have poorly cut diamonds. And the only way to truly get the true brilliance, to shine through the diamond, is to cut it many, many, many times. I think there's this thing called the 100 cut diamond. Let me
mm,
look it up. And it's supposed to increase the brilliance. Hold on, let me see. Um, 100 cut diamond. It's the 100 facet diamond. Yeah. And it makes it look so ridiculously brilliant.
mm,
That's the thing, though. It's like all the things that we go through in life. Um, we don't want to be cut. We don't want to be injured. We don't want to see ourselves as this or that or whatever and whatever and whatever else we tell ourselves. But that's a very process. That is a very process that you have to go through in order to be able to learn how to discern. It's hard. It's scary. And most people have a hard time going through that. It'll be okay. It really will be okay. You'll be able to learn the things you need to know at the rate that you need to learn it, and then you'll be better suited to handle a lot of the things that your life brings your way. That includes the people that are difficult. That includes the people who will encourage you to be difficult with them. You know, just really allowing yourself to flow. That's the best thing to do. And consider a mentorship. Mentorships are oftentimes very life changing. It has a tendency to change someone's life if they invest their time and their effort into what I'm telling them to do, you know? Um Dolphin dreams, I still question the caca that comes through my head. Take out my sword. She'd be trying to fight her higher self. Teresa, you mean that voice I sometimes ignore? Well, for me, I mean the voice that I always ignore. I tell her we not friends today, girl. No, me and my higher self and I are friends. But sometimes, it's like I like to learn things on my own terms, and that's fine. It's fine if I like to learn things on my own terms, but I can't then be a big baby about it and be like, I can't believe my soul this, my higher self that, Archangel Michael, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, no. I choose what I choose, and I live through the consequence of what I choose. And that's just that. Okay. Because I'm aware that I chose to exercise the options that I selected. So that woke and aware, they're two completely separate things. Um, and it's not like the definition of awaken. It's not that at all. It's an entire subculture, you guys. Okay. I'm talking about the entire um, faux spiritual community. Those are not healthy. They're not. I'm saying this as someone who has been part of several. Okay. And every single time they have excommunicated me because I'm non compliant. I will only um I'll only play in to their caca for so long before I'm like, wait a minute, I think you're a liar. And then, you know, and then it becomes ugly. Oh, Ocean, you're muted.
Thank you.
There you are.
Yeah, I'm not made for spaces of hypocrisy either. I'm just not. I just can't fit, and I just don't want to force myself to fit into any of those spaces. There's a quote by Rochelle Farrell, one of my favorite artists. I think she's so talented, so neurodivergent, so multidimensional. And one thing that she says is, I just don't fit into that box. She said to fit in that box, you have to hack off your arms and legs.
Yeah.
And I'm not willing to do that anymore for my life.
I hear you say that in order to fit in the box, you have to hack off your arms and legs. How would you ever stand up or lift yourself after that?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
You have effectively taken away your own personal power over your autonomy.
Mm.
So, if there's one thing that you want people to walk away with from this conversation, what's that one thing?
That one thing would be consider the difference between awake and aware, and really understand what you want your goal to be for your life, for your journey.
So, I don't know if they can see it, but there's this really beautiful thing that's happening. Your face is alternating between red and green with
Really?
some waves of like aura on the
Oh,
side of the head.
deep.
It's beautiful.
What does that mean? Just out of curiosity. What does that
Ooh,
mean?
and then it turned yellow just now.
Wow.
So the red root chakra, probably a fear of speaking your truth still to some degree. And
Wow.
then the heart chakra, like you're speaking from your heart.
Mm,
And as you're speaking from your heart and you're asking me what that means, you feel this uptick, this swelling of your personal power, like
wow.
you're retrieving and you're not going to back down. You want to
Wow.
know what it means? You'll ask me publicly so that you can understand and better calibrate yourself to the growing sense of personal power that you're receiving. That, y'all, is multidimensional processing.
Mm, deep. And it all ties in so deeply. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
And that's not me regurgitating something I read somewhere. That is me being aware of what your energy communicating. The difference between awake and aware is you can't compare the two.
Mm,
You can't. There is no way to compare the two. It's
mm.
like, what would you prefer? A real life lion in the wilderness or watching a stuffed lion on TV?
Oh, I can't help but smile because that question reminds me so much. Somebody so special, and you should have warned me because I'm just blushing all on the TV. He's just the most precious little thing. Okay, it's just those questions. Wow.
Girl, he said that I should have a guest come on once a week for questions.
Hey, I like it. And the synchronicity there, because just earlier I was wondering about having somebody on sometimes, bringing somebody on to interview them, to have a conversation just this morning before the show. Wow.
Yes. Well, I think he was talking about himself.
What? Hey, you know what? He, he's, I can't even speak, guys. I don't even know what's going on with my aura, but that little guy is always welcome anywhere I am. Mhm.
Oh my gosh. You guys, this was a very, very fun talk. It's nice to just have conversations with you. It's very,
It's
very nice.
Thank you. Yes, it feels good. It's like I don't think I would have agreed to this for anyone else. I'm like, I like to be in the shadows, but more and more,
Yeah.
the unfolding is real. It's happening, and I embrace it now. So thank you for that.
Very, very, very good. Very good. So we're working on quite a few projects remotely, but we hope to be able to share some of these projects with you very, very soon. If you would like to see more information on some of the new things that we're working on, go to soulworksynergistics.com/projects. Thank you, Lindsay.
This is wonderful.
She is. And you can go to that link that Lindsay commented, and you'll be able to see all the different things we have going on. I know that Ocean will be teaching some pop up workshops. I'm very excited about you doing that. I wish I could do it too, but my schedule doesn't allow that. So you guys will be in very, very good hands with Ocean. We've been going in depth with some of the different things that she has planned. It looks like it's going to be a very, very empowering experience with you.
Mm,
Were you planning still on was it the 5 days?
I think that would be great.
Yeah. So it's going to be an amazing experience. I think we're just having them pop in, right? They don't
Yes,
have to have like a set commitment of how many days they go.
right. And they can always catch the replay, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So she's going to be teaching this on my academy, k33academy.com. Once everything is completely figured out with schedules and all of that, we're going to have it listed there, and we're going to put it on soulworksynergistics.com/projects. So if you'd like to learn some good stuff from Ocean Lover over here, you got to go check it out. We're going to have that up in the next few days, okay, guys? And oh girl, we have some yummy, yummy, yummies.
Literally.
Literally. It was good stuff. We're going to have that up on soulworksynergistics.com as well. Definitely check out that link, soulworksynergistics.com/projects, and you'll be able to see all of the different things we're creating for you guys. It's going to be an amazing few weeks coming up.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much. If you would like to be part of our private conversation, our exclusive convo, you can go to the soulsanctuary.love and join us there. With that, that is a perk that we have. We encourage our ministry members, those who partake in the recurring contribution for the Soul Sanctuary, that all of that funding, if you are in the United States and you have a recurring contribution for Soulwork Synergistics, that is a tax deductible donation. Okay. It's not a membership. It is a recurring contribution like you do at church, because that's where we go for church. The most powerful, profound conversations take place there. And y'all, it's not like a live stream. If you
Mm-mm.
can find the courage, you come up on screen with me and we talk. We powwow on screen. We
Yeah.
powwow on screen, and everyone has equal opportunity to chat. It's beautiful. It's one of my most favorite places on earth.
It is so beautiful. And even, I'm glad you said that because even the things that we couldn't get to today with the time, that's why after the party, there's an after party.
Yeah. It really is like an after
It
party,
really is. And it's great. And we go deep. She goes so deep. You want to know? She's like, hey, she'll ask you, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? And you know us, we want to go. Run it. Like, it's
We
not
go
too
deep.
late. It's not
Yeah.
too late. You can still go ahead and is that website on the screen? Is
Yes,
that we have
it's
time to put on the
scrolling.
screen?
Yeah, it's scrolling on the bottom of the screen.
Wonderful.
The soulsanctuary.love. thesoulsanctuary.love. That's where you go. And we're going to meet up in about 10 minutes. So if you're part of the recurring contribution, y'all already knowing, just go onto the homepage, log in, and get to that exclusive chat. I want to talk about quite a few different things. There's a lot of happenings going on. I feel energy shifting. Just something profound is going to be coming out in this conversation. Like if y'all know we've had extremely profound conversations. This on a whole nother level. I'm feeling it in my chest.
Yes. You were frozen for a minute. Your screen was like,
Oh,
but it captured the enormity of what is going on. It's like,
your whole screen is flashing greens and stuff.
really? Wow. That's so deep.
Yeah. So now y'all know it's about to be lit.
It's about to be lit.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
like a torch.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me today, Ocean Lover. And thank you, everyone, for sharing this space with us. We'll see you again very, very soon. I'll be live tomorrow, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'll see you guys back here for church. Bye, everyone.